Welcome to Top Animal Zone.
Top 9 animals with the lowest IQs in the jungle. When we think of the jungle, images of cunning, quick-witted animals often come to mind. Clever monkeys, stealthy predators like leopards, or ambush-savvy snakes. But have you ever stopped to wonder, in this wild classroom of nature, who are the underachievers? Who are the troublemakers of the forest school? Welcome to this video. Top 9 animals with the lowest IQs in the jungle. Let's explore the characters who might just make you scratch your head with their adorably clueless ways. Top 1. The sloth. While most animals fight to be faster, smarter, stronger, the sloth chose the opposite path. Slowness, stillness, and simplicity. The sloth has long been the symbol of slowness. But this slowness isn't just about movement. It extends deeply into how they think and react to their surroundings. From a scientific perspective, neurological studies have shown that the sloth's nervous system operates at an extremely low conduction speed, among the lowest recorded in any mammal. Their brains are small, structurally simple, and incapable of processing complex information. As a result, their response to environmental stimuli is sluggish, from detecting threats to making basic behavioral decisions. They sleep between 15 to 20 hours a day and are only active during low-light conditions. Even when awake, sloths move at an average speed of less than 0.3 kilometers per hour. Interestingly, despite often living near water, they are poor swimmers. There have been cases of sloths drowning simply because they fell into a stream and couldn't figure out how to escape. In terms of learning and adaptation, sloths show little to no capacity for learning from experience. Their behaviors are almost entirely instinctual, repetitive, and show minimal creativity or social interaction. From a biological standpoint, the sloth is a textbook example of how a creature can survive for millions of years by simplifying everything, from metabolism to behavior, even down to thought itself. And yet, it's this very lack of intelligence that makes the sloth unforgettable, even endearing. In a jungle filled with predators and fierce competition, the sloth chooses a different path. Slow, silent, and unbothered. Perhaps that too is a kind of intelligence. The wisdom of letting go. 2. The agouti. The agouti is one of the largest rodent species in South America and plays a surprisingly vital role in the forest ecosystem. It is known for its unique habit of burying seeds underground to store food, a behavior rarely seen among rainforest rodents. However, here lies an ironic twist. Agoutis often forget where they've buried their seeds. From a neurological perspective, agoutis possess moderate mid-term memory that allows them to relocate some of their seed caches. But their short-term memory is notably weak. When the number of buried seeds exceeds their memory capacity, agoutis become disoriented and unable to find their hidden supplies. Because of this forgetfulness, many ecologists refer to them as the accidental farmers of the rainforest, since the seeds they forget often germinate and grow into new trees. In terms of cognitive abilities, agoutis show limited problem-solving capacity. Their defensive behavior is extremely basic: run, freeze, or hide when startled. They lack advanced self-defense strategies, show no group coordination, and do not produce alarm calls like many other small social mammals. In a jungle where nothing is forgiving, and where intelligence can often mean survival, the agouti feels like a misplaced dreamer, unaware, unguarded, and uninterested in competing. It lives by instinct, alone, quietly gathering seeds, and blissfully forgetting them. When I first read the neurological studies on this species, I couldn't help but laugh. A creature so forgetful, so repetitive, that it ends up reforesting the Amazon without even knowing it. But when I thought deeper, I realized this simplicity is what makes it irreplaceable in its ecosystem. It may not be intelligent by our human standards, but in nature's grand design, the agouti is a silent, steady link in the chain. And that, perhaps, is a form of intelligence that is humbly wise. 3. Panda. If you're a fan of the famous movie Kung Fu Panda, it might be hard to believe that the adorable panda could be ranked among the animals with the lowest IQs. But in reality, that's exactly what many scientific evaluations suggest. Despite their lovable appearance, giant pandas are often considered one of the least intelligent mammal species, at least by certain behavioral and neurological standards. One of the clearest signs is their extreme laziness. Pandas are notably inactive. They move very little and their reproductive behavior is strikingly limited, with females being fertile only once a year for just a short window. Even during pregnancy, panda mothers often show little awareness of their offspring. In fact, within panda society, it is not uncommon for mothers to accidentally crush their cubs while sleeping, or ignore their cries entirely, a behavior that, although heartbreaking, is relatively normal in this species. The primary reason for their low cognitive ranking seems to lie in their dietary habits. Pandas eat almost exclusively bamboo, a plant that contains very little protein, fat, or essential nutrients. To survive, they must consume massive amounts of bamboo every day, just to meet basic energy needs. This energy-intensive diet leaves very little room for biological investment in higher brain function or behavioral complexity. In other words, pandas are biologically wired for energy conservation, not cognitive evolution. Their lifestyle is based on simplicity, instinct, and survival, not learning or problem-solving. While we might laugh at their clumsiness or feel sorry for their poor parenting, pandas are a fascinating case study in how diet, evolution, and environment can shape not only behavior, but also the limits of intelligence. The young wild boar. Pigs are generally known as one of the most intelligent mammals, especially domesticated pigs. However, the younger members of their wild relatives, including young wild boars and peccaries, do not display the same level of cognitive sophistication. These animals often lack spatial awareness and are prone to becoming separated from their herd, especially when faced with unexpected changes or unfamiliar surroundings. What struck me most when studying young wild pigs wasn't their lack of intelligence per se, but the stark contrast between them and their close relatives, domestic pigs. While the latter can unlock doors, remember the layout of a pen, or solve basic puzzles, their wild cousins live almost entirely on instinct and can lose their sense of direction after only a short distance. To me, this is a clear example of how environment shapes the cognitive development of a species. Domestic pigs have lived alongside humans for generations, exposed to training, selective breeding, and enriched environments that enhance learning. In contrast, wild pigs, especially in their early stages, rely on basic survival reflexes rather than higher cognition. Yet from another perspective, it's this very simplicity that makes them well adapted to life in the wild. What humans might label as lack of intelligence could simply be nature's way of optimizing efficiency for a specific ecological niche. The forest lizard. The forest lizard is a classic example of a species with a simple nervous system, one that operates primarily on instant reflexes rather than intentional information processing or learned behavior. Their primary survival response is to flee, quite literally. When startled by noise, vibration, or shadows, they dart away at high speed in random directions. This often includes fleeing straight out of their shelter, or worse, back into a dangerous area they just escaped from. Forest lizards lack the ability to assess safe versus dangerous zones or remember effective escape routes. When we think of intelligence, we often picture the ability to analyze, learn, and remember. And by those standards, the forest lizard is clearly not remarkable. But from a survivalist perspective, I see their simplicity not as a flaw, but as an evolutionary strategy. The lizard may not be intelligent in the human sense, but it knows how to conserve energy for the right priorities. Evade, camouflage, react. It doesn't waste time on complex processing that has little value in its world. 6. The porcupine. In the natural world, every animal species has its own survival strategy. Some rely on speed, others on intelligence, and some, like the porcupine, depend on passive but highly effective defense mechanisms. With its unique appearance and formidable coat of sharp quills, the porcupine stands as a prime example of the latter. However, It is precisely this near-perfect defense system that ironically contributes to the porcupine being listed among the animals with the lowest IQs according to various scientific evaluations. Porcupines are medium-sized rodents equipped with a dense layer of quills on their backs and tails, modified hairs that are hollow, rigid, and razor-sharp. When threatened, a porcupine does not run away. Instead, it turns its back to the predator, shakes its tail to produce a warning rattle, and, if the threat persists, backs into the attacker to impale it with its quills. These quills can detach, embed deeply, and cause serious infections, deterring even powerful predators like wolves, lynxes, or leopards. Yet, from a behavioral and neurological perspective, the porcupine shows very limited cognitive ability. Porcupines do not develop avoidance skills or predictive behaviors like many other animals do. Despite being slow-moving with poor eyesight, they do not proactively avoid danger zones, relying almost exclusively on their quills. In captivity or behavioral studies, porcupines respond slowly, are difficult to train, and struggle to retain commands or recognize signals. They also lack advanced social behaviors such as food sharing, mutual protection, or knowledge transmission, traits often seen in more intelligent species. 7. The squirrel monkey. At first glance, squirrel monkeys look like little geniuses of the jungle. Quick, energetic, full of expression, and constantly on the move. You'd think they're one of the smartest creatures up in the trees. But the deeper I explored their world, the more I realized things aren't always what they seem. Despite their lively appearance, squirrel monkeys have very small brains relative to their body size, a measurement called the encephalization quotient, EQ, which is among the lowest in the primate family. This means they rely mostly on instinct, not reasoning or problem-solving. Their communication is basic, and although they live in groups, their social behavior is simple. They don't pass knowledge between individuals the way more intelligent primates like baboons or bonobos do. Cooperation is minimal, and each monkey tends to act on its own rather than as part of a well-organized group. What fascinated me most was how such a bright, busy creature could function with such little cognitive depth. But maybe that's exactly the point. In a quiet, predictable jungle, instinct is enough. No need to overthink, no need to plan ahead, just leap, grab, run, repeat. 8. Coolie. Among the animals I've come across in my journey of exploring wildlife, the slow loris is perhaps the most quietly mysterious. With its wide, glassy eyes and gentle, almost timid movements, it looks like a creature straight out of a dream. But behind that innocent face is a story about instinct, slowness, and surprisingly, low intelligence. The slow loris, Necticebus, is a small, nocturnal primate known for its slow, deliberate movements and almost silent presence. Measuring just 20 to 40 centimeters long, it lives in the humid forests of Southeast Asia. What makes the slow loris especially unique is that it is one of the few primates with a toxic bite. It secretes a toxin from glands near its elbows, which it licks and spreads via its saliva. However, despite this rare defense mechanism, the slow loris is extremely passive when faced with danger. Instead of fleeing or actively defending itself, it usually freezes or moves even slower, making it an easy target for predators and humans. 9. Jungle fowl, Gallus gallus. We often think of chickens as simple animals, especially because they've lived alongside humans for thousands of years. But when I discovered the jungle fowl, their wild ancestors, I realized just how much of their behavior is still rooted in instinct, not intelligence. And in the wild, that simplicity comes with serious limitations. The jungle fowl is the wild bird species from which domestic chickens descend. It lives in tropical forests, forest edges, and lowland grasslands where it forages on the ground for seeds, insects, fruits, and small invertebrates. Although capable of short-distance flight, it mostly runs or walks to get around. Jungle fowl live in flocks with a clear social hierarchy. Roosters compete through calls, dances, and displays, while hens maintain pecking orders within the group. At first glance, these seem like signs of complex social behavior. But in reality, they are highly instinctive and repetitive actions. Compared to birds known for their intelligence, like crows, parrots, or pigeons, jungle fowl rank quite low in cognitive ability. Their behavior is dominated by reflexes and fear responses, such as panicking at sudden noises or shadows. For example, if startled, they often just scatter in fear without coordinating as a group or changing their escape pattern over time. They fail to learn from experience, and their behavior remains predictable and rigid. In one experimental study, jungle fowl were placed in changing environments or had their food sources altered. Unlike crows or parrots, which explored and adapted quickly, jungle fowl became confused, hid away, or stopped eating altogether. This inability to adjust reflects their low behavioral flexibility and limited learning capacity. So, what did we discover today? In a world that often celebrates intelligence as the ultimate advantage, these species remind us that nature values fit over clever, efficiency over complexity, and sometimes stillness over strategy. Which animal surprised you the most? Or perhaps you saw a bit of yourself in one of them. If you enjoyed this journey into the forgotten corners of the animal kingdom, where instinct reigns over intellect, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel. There are so many more stories out there waiting to be told. Click subscribe, Top Animal Zone, and join me next time as we continue exploring the natural world.